Hey, this is part 3 if you haven't seen part 1 or 2 yet. What are you doing? How did you even end up here? You can go check them out here right now. This is your official spoiler warning to go and check them out if you have seen the other pilots that enjoy the rest of the video. The next day, trying to quickly go down the line and fixing the polished Okabe makes his way to the shrine where he tells Riker that she used to be a guy. This understandably doesn't go over well, no matter how he tries to explain it back. At the lab he gets in trouble off of Mayuri and Kurisu for making her cry again when he pulls her suicide, telling her about it, probably rooted in text Okabe to meet her at the shrine, and after he does, she admit that she does believe what he said. However, she has request. She says she will become a guy again in exchange for Okabe becoming her boyfriend. You see, I see, this is an absolute win. She then admits that she loves him and asking that just for one day he will be her boyfriend, not wanting to see cry. Okabe accepts. He then tries getting dating advice from Kyusu and Daru, which quickly goes from bad to worse. Kurisu does however set him up with that trip. Okabe, that means review for the day together with Daru and Kurisu. Following close behind, the day becomes increasingly awkward with Okabe too much in his head thinking about trying to make this day go smoothly. Then, while they're walking together, Ruka, like Ferris, begins remember the Previo Us world line in which he was a guy. This distresses Sir, and as they reach the shrine she abruptly ends the date, giving him the details to a mother's pager. Okabe then realizes that the reason they didn't enjoy that day was because he was trying to be someone he's not. Okabe then races back to the shrine where he spends the rest of the day training with the group like they used to, restoring their relationship completely. Okabe basins that email on doing the one true God sent. The oldest left now is no weak is Okabe manages to track down with my weaker is living and makes his way to her apartment. However, after arriving he learns that she committed suicide the night before. He then waits until later that night to learn the new point in time, which Mayuri dies in this world line before doing another leap and making his way back to me because apartment. Upon entering, he finds her having to complete an auto-nervous breakdown, trying desperately to get any sort of response back from someone called FB. Okabe manages to wrestle her phone away and then looks more. We get in a room. He then tells Courtesy to get the phone microwave ready to send the email which will undo her initial one. He clicks send, but nothing happens. He's reading Steiner didn't activate. He realizes the text she sent a needy ally wasn't actually telling herself to get a new phone, and she must have sent another one shortly. After needing no answers, he goes back and confronting the weaker and telling her about how she is being used by the FB person and that in a few days' time she's destined to kill herself as a result of being abandoned by them. Okabe manages to find the text, which is involved in the location of the IBM, but after sending another email telling her to read, nor the world line still isn't changed. He then realizes the only person we could listen to will be FB. As he goes to lead to try and find out who FB is, Mawika, due to being abandoned, tells, or could be the location of the IBM. Back at the lab, Okabe plans to go to the location and break open the locker holding the IBM. However, he gets stopped by Kyusu, who instead suggests that they stake out Liu Katayan to try and find out the identity of this FB person, as Okabe staked out the locker in which the IBM is located. But we could join him, bring him some food, saying that she too wants to see who FB is. The next morning they see someone taking the package, which is passed along to several different people, one of which is Kobe's landlord, Mr. Berlin. Before then gets loaded onto a plane bound for France with Sun is located. Okabe, Kurisu, and Mawika then go to confront Mr. Berlin to find out he knows about FB. They go to his house and briefly talked before Okabe asks Mr. Berlin if he knows who FB is. Mr. Brown then tells me we could that she sold the melt, her revealing that he is the one known as FB. He then tells them the Nay's sleeping, so they should go somewhere else, taking into a construction yard. This guy just admitted being the one working for the company that is trying to kill you and all your friends, and you just go somewhere with him anyway. Once that Mr. Brown reveals to the group that he's been working for Sun ever since he was saved by the money was a little kid, climb his way by bit up the letter and then up where he is now. He tells him that he thought about running several times, but because of his daughter Day, he never could because he knows what they would do to her if he ran. He then reveals to me we could that he truly had no care for her in any way, and she was just a tool for him, one that had outlived its use, and following the code of the round is for those that failed a mission or betray the Coles, shoots and kills her before doing the same to himself. Kuzu that reminds the shocked Okabe about that email. He then gets Mr. Brown's FO Rain sending that email to Mawika posing as FB to conclude all searches and go back into stand by. These returns into the world line with Mr. Berlin and Mohika both still alive. And the IBM is once again in that position. Okabe then also started to hack into Soon using the IBM in order to delete any information Soon has on them. They then talk about how all is left to do now is stopped the email from ever being sent. I will be back in the original world line. Cursor then jokingly points out the fact that the original world line is the one which Okabe told that she gets stabbed in. Okabe is horrified. Realizing she's correct, Dari says that he's gonna begin hacking into So now when Okabe tells him to wait, the no longer doing that Okabe that accompanies me read to a comic book convention. Trying to think of a way in which you can prevent Mary from dying without having to sacrifice could resume as well later that night. As they're walking down an alleyway, Mary again comments to the stopwatches stopped working when they see a car start driving towards them down the alleyway, and in a desperate attempt at changing fate, Okabe goes to throw himself in front of it instead of letting me. Or you get hit. Mary Heleva pushes them out of the way and gets hit by instead died. At the same time she always does. He again leaps back in time before going to lie on the roof contemplating what to do. As possible, Carissa goes up to talk to him, forcing him to tell what's got him so worked up. He then reveals the truth to her, that if they go back and change the very first email to never having happened, they will then enter the beta world line, a world line which Kyusu is stabbed and killed. Later that night, Karisu visits the place where she was stabbed in the previous world line the next day. After searching for a while, Okabe finds Karisu line on the rooftop of the radio building. It begins to rain, and they make their way inside. Karisu notices a small cut on his lab coat and insists that she stitched up after fixing it. Karisu: awesome. If it was me, she got stabbed. Okabe: Oscar, how she knows? And she reveals that she has a weak, almost non-existent memory of it. But they're still there, no just of her being stabbed, but have him desperately trying to save me. Tsu then tells him that he should save me worry instead of herself. Unable to accept this and refusing to give up, Okabe runs back to the lab. As he prepares himself the doing of the Tim Leap, Karisu comes in and stops him, telling him that if he just sees Mary die again and again it will completely destroy him. Karisu tells him to save Mary. We then have a beautiful scene of Okabe to clear his feelings for Karisu, and Carissa explained that even if she does die in the new world line, surely she will still be living and breathing in the infinite otherworldly ness that exists. Social never truly be gone. Okabe then admits that he loves her, asking her she feels the same, and she responds by kissing him. The next day, Karisu is returning back to America, and in the lab they're preparing to delete the original email from Sons that works just as he hits delete. Karisu breaks into the room, tried to tell him that she also loves him. It is cut off as Okabe shifts back into the bay to weld line sometime bosses, and Okabe gets rid of the phone wave completely. He then received a phone call out of the blue from an alternate Souza telling him that she needs to meet him and she needs his help to stop World War III. Moment is never catching a break. Izzy, upon reaching the rooftop of the radio building, this news is a Holocaust. Okabe to come with her, which she refuses, saying that in the past 3 weeks he's altered the world lines again and again. I was also sacrificed. Karisu decreases beta world line, telling her that he call let all this count for nothing. Susan How then tells them that the way to prevent World War III is to prevent the death of Karisu, saying that she doesn't exactly know the details, but a main mission to save Karisu and into the one world line unaffected by the attractive field which causes World War III. The Steins Gate. Okabe then travels to the policy through the hall in a time machine, arriving sometime before Chris's death. Suze the Hell wants him not to interact with his own self in any way, as that will cause a serious time paradox. We then witness events unfold like they did the first time around. Okabe manages to avoid the previous version of himself, but does have a bump in the Karisu. And we find out the reason why she acted that way in her initial meeting so long ago, as he is completely stunned to see her alive. Sometime bosses, and Okabe manages to make his way into the room which Karisu was stabbed there. Karisu meets with her father, which is revealed to be Dr. Knockabout G. And we find out that Karisu had made the entire theory on time travel to try to win a father back. He, however, is just the worst person ever and intends to take full credit for a work. She tells him that she never thought he could go so low as to do that when he starts attacking and choking H. Trying to save her, Okabe tackles the doctor away, who then pulls out a knife and began swinging at Okabe. Okabe manages to wrestle the knife away from him when he picks up a screwdriver and seems like he's about to stab Carissa, trying to save her. Okabe then charges that a father when cursor pus He's the father away in Oak Bay, unable to stop his momentum, stabs Kurisu, killing her. The doctor then grabs the papers and runs away. Susano could be then returned back to where they left off with Cabana, completely shaken state, as he was the one that killed Kurisu. Attacks then tells in the two. Right now on the TV, in which we see Doctor talk about you having given the theory of time travel to the Russian government. Susan How explains that this event leads to a time machine arms race and eventually will go through. Susan How that insisted he try again, but conveys defeated, stating that he cannot change anything he tried of Mary and nothing worked. The same will happen with Kurisu. He then says he's tired of this. Before beginning to walk away, Mary, the absolute MVP, then comes in with Okabe, telling him that the Okabe she knows would never give up on someone or something if it was Impo. Can't. Susan How then tells him that the scrambled video message you received on the day courtesy was stabbed should be watchable, now apologizing for lying to him but stating that the plan called for him to fail at least once. This video message turns out to be a video from himself 15 years in the future. Explain that in order to save Kurisu he was for his past self into thinking Carissa who has died. But he has to do it in a way which one stop his future self in this timeline 15 years down the track for making a time machine and causing a paradox. They make their way back to the lab. Well, could be Grubs light up swords, planning to use liquid as a substitute for Curry's, whose blood Okabe and swears about the return to the day of course whose death. He then again meets Carissa, this time telling her that he's gonna save up before running off. He then what's in the room. Carissa was initially stepped in for her and a father to show up. However, as he's waiting he finds out the liquid in the lead-up sort has dried out as Kurisu and a father begin arguing. Okabe and Dance's presence then told her father in order to get the much needed blood the only way he knows hell begins, stabbed in the guts. Okabe then intimidates a father by continuing on after being stabbed, causing him to run off. To Sue then tries calling out for someone to help today when he again says he's gonna save her using his taser to knock her out. He then uses his blood to replicate the exact scene he initially saw as Susan How tries to drag him back to the time machine he asked to wait. And we see his original self finding the body of Kurisu. Okabe then thinks to himself, good luck, you're about to enter the hottest and best 3 weeks of your life. Most of the time machine. Susan I'll give the thanks before she disappears, as she doesn't exist in the world line of Steins Gate. Dr. Spending some time in hospital and recovering from his wounds, Okabe start to give out badges to the LET members he recruited. Another world lines, saving one for Susan who will be born in 7 years' time. We then end with Okabe walking through a busy street thinking about tourists who and where she might be now, being satisfied knowing that she is alive and well somewhere when they suddenly policy each other on the street. Kurisu thinking that she finally found him and wants to thank him for saving her. Okabe then does his role-playing ways, which is somehow familiar with. And we know that she still retains some of the memories she had from a previous world lines. Thanks, watch the video. If you enjoyed, please like and subscribe. It only takes a second, and it really helps me out.